We're live. You probably see it too.
Yep.
Awesome. Facebook, hi, it's me. I'm waving at you with this little hand. Can you see the little hand? I hope so. Well, this is Linda Marcus Smith, your girl, here on Comic Strip Live again. This is interview number 731. Yeah, we're doing it, you guys. I hope you're having fun watching these. Go on the YouTube, comedian Linda Marcus Smith. Click like, subscribe, and watch a couple videos. Get to know some comedians. You know, you don't really ever get to know them that well on stage. You get to know them a little, but this way you really get to know them and you fall in love with them and then you want to help their careers. Oh, it never ends. Well, anyway, I have to give a nod to my only paid sponsor. Yeah, I got one of those. Aha Broadway in New York. They do comedy, stand-up, and improv classes for children, for seniors, for veterans. Yeah, I'm not a child, but I'm the other two. Yeah, so check out ahabroadway.org. Chris Murphy out there is the comedy trainer. He's an actual working paid road comic. So you get a real good lesson or two from him. He's fabulous as a trainer. People are really stepping up their comedy game. So if that's what you want to do, go to ahabroadway.org. Today, we have a special guest here for you to get to know. And I'm so delighted that we get to know him. Let me get to his, yeah, I'm slow, just go with it. It's not because I'm old either. I know what you're thinking. The old lady, she's so unrelatable. No, that's not true. I just don't like technology. Okay, so it's not because I'm old. Let me read you the intro of our guest who's sitting in the wings over in the other square, Ethan Feldman. Oh yeah, we get to know him, get to know him today. Ethan Feldman. These are his words. I asked for a braggy intro. So he's probably not a braggy person, but he gave me this intro. So here we go. Ethan Feldman is a New York City-based stand-up comedian. Listen, you guys, that is not easy to do, right? It's not easy to be a New York-based comedian, but he's doing it, you guys. Let's get to know him. Festivals he's done include the Conchi Comedy Festival, Finger Lakes Comedy Festival, Mommy Mary and Joseph Comedy Festival, Portland, Maine Comedy Festival, Turnpike Comedy Festival, Suru or SURU Comedy Festival. Ethan has been on Bravo TV, Bravo Ethan, Amazon Prime, and Sirius XM. Oh my gosh, he's done a lot. Let's get to know him. What's he like off stage, behind any kind of mask? We don't know. Let's find out. Welcome to the stage, Ethan Feldman. Hi, Ethan. How you doing?
Hey, Linda. I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing well. You're over there in the East Coast. You're a New York City-based comedian. Well, you made it through a pandemic mostly out there in the hot spot. What was that like for you, your family, and fellow comedians?
I actually have a very interesting pandemic story. So I'm basically born and raised in New York, a native New Yorker. But my wife is from Florida. She's from Central Florida. And we had some stuff to do at our house, at her house. She still has her childhood home down in Florida. So before the pandemic had hit, I had worked it out with my job to work remotely for a month. So like, hey, I need to get we needed to get like the roof done in her old childhood home. So we went down to Florida. We actually flew down to Florida on Leap Day, February 29th to 2020. And then things started closing down in New York. And my company said, we're not bringing you back to the office. So then we were like, well, we live in a small apartment in New York, but we also have a house here in Florida. We might as well just stay. So we've been staying in Florida during the pandemic. So I'm from New York, but we've actually inadvertently stayed here during the pandemic. I've been back to New York a couple of times, but mostly I've been in Florida.
What city are you in, or what county in Florida?
It's Winter Haven, which is part of Polk County. It's like an hour from Orlando.
Yes, I know where that's at. I lived in Vero Beach for a few months.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So, did the virus touch any of your friends and family in a very serious way, like illnesses or death?
Um, my really close family and friends, I not really actually, which is good. I had some comedian friends I know that had posted about their fathers and some siblings like getting sick, or a couple that did pass away actually. So there are
Yeah.
some comedian friends that I have that I know about this. But in terms of my family, no one in my immediate family or even my extended family got sick or even got COVID. So which is good. But they're all like pretty responsible. But most of them stayed in when they were told to stay in, got vaccinated. Like they pretty much followed all the orders they needed to follow.
That's fabulous, fabulous. So one day early in the pandemic, I saw 5 people that I knew in comedy pass away in one day.
Wow.
But I'm over here in Vegas, and I could only imagine what it would be like for those who went through the pandemic in the early days in New York. Must have been horrible.
Yeah, I remember hearing from my coworkers that like less and less people were showing up to the office, and eventually the company made an official announcement like just don't come in anymore. And I do
But
know some people that passed away from it, but they're people that I didn't know like that well.
yes. What kind of day job do you have in New York?
I'm a software engineer,
Oh,
but it's really a
wonderful.
fancy term for like web developer. All the software that I make is web based. Work on is web based.
Wonderful. That's really great. So you make, okay, I'm a dense as a doorknob. Knob. You're gonna have to say it twice. So what do you do?
I help make websites
Okay.
basically. Yeah.
So like if I wanted my own website, no, but websites in a bigger, like for big corporations or big reasons, not for little schmoes like me.
Well, I could do websites for you for a personal. I've actually done a lot of web and graphic design work for several comics in New York. Like I helped Jean Kim out with her flyers for the comedy for the comic strip.
Yes. Oh, that's wonderful. I wondered who did that.
Yeah, it's me.
Oh, that's so cool. Well, yeah, you were talking about Gene Kim and the flyer. That's for the Gladys Simon party on
Yep,
Wednesday on Zoom and live at Comic Strip Live Thursdays.
yep, that's right. So I was doing the flyers for her before the pandemic, and then once the pandemic hit, I made the virtual one.
I love those flyers. I'm always sharing them.
Thanks.
That's my favorite group of people for the last, I don't know, 3.5 years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's been a good room to. I used to go up there a lot, like Wednesdays for her show / Mike, and it was very. She'd always give you feedback. But Gladys is very funny because a lot of her feedback to me is like, "Why did you put gel in your hair today?" And she's like, "Don't gel next time." And I, I didn't know this until after like we had one of the Zoom shows, and then we did like a question and answer session, and she was talking about how she used to be a hairstylist, and I was like, "Oh, I get it now. Now I know why you like keep giving me comments about my hair."
Yes. You know, a lot of people, I don't know, ding her or give her demerits because she's, the first thing she notices with the new people is just the looks. But, they don't understand. She's been around the business so long, she knows what can hold somebody back. So,
Yeah.
I think it's funny because she doesn't really give a darn what anybody thinks. She says what comes to her mind, and look out, it's gonna come out.
Yeah, I mean, there's times where she's giving me that feedback, and I'm like, "What about my jokes, though? Like, how did those go? I don't care about my hair right now. Like, just tell me how the jokes went."
Yeah, I every time I get done doing my comedy, I usually hear, "You look so beautiful." I'm like, "What about the jokes, Gladys? The jokes."
Yeah,
What if I went out for like Miss USA and they said, "Oh, you're so funny." It doesn't work.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So let's go back in time. I like to go chronologically, otherwise, it's all over the map when I interview. So you made it through the pandemic. You're living in Florida. You're really from New York, but you made it through the pandemic pretty much unscathed. And back in time, way back, little Ethan, where did you go to school? How funny were you at home? How funny were you at school?
So I went to school so I was actually born in upstate New York, like 2 hours north of the city in a really small town called High Falls. High
Okay,
Falls is like the biggest towns near it are like Kingston and New Paltz. It's like an hour south of Albany.
got
So
it.
it's like Ulster County. And I we moved to New York City when I was 9 years old because we moved to New York City when I was 9 years old because I have a twin brother,
No
identical twin brother.
way, Ethan, I have a twin brother.
Yeah, that's so funny. That I know we had talked about it and people were like, "Are you guys identical or fraternal?" Like, I don't think it works like that. People always ask me about my twin moments and stuff. But the reason that we moved to New York City was because of school for my brother, because we went to the same elementary school in upstate New York. But my brother has a learning disability, and the town was just like so small. They didn't really know like what to do with him on how to like teach him properly. So he
Yeah.
went to a school in New York City called Stephen Gaynor School, which is like a really, really great school. It's on the Upper West Side. And I went to a school called Trevor Day School. And at the time, I was really like upset about moving because I had friends upstate. I didn't want to leave. Like, but I think it was a good thing overall because my brother really, got a better grip on schooling from going to a school specialized like that. And yeah, going back to your questions, like I felt like I was always kind of joking around with my friends and stuff, and always was kind of like funny and stuff. At home, we all, yeah, my dad and me, my brother always joked around too. So I was always kind of funny and joked around. And I did a lot of like at my school, at Trevor Day School, they did a lot of like plays and stuff. And I always did plays, but it wasn't like comedy, but I always did plays.
Well, that helps you with your presentation and probably helped you have a persona sooner than other comics too.
Yeah, yeah, maybe I don't doubt it.
Yeah. So what age were you when you moved for your brother's schooling?
9, I was 9.
9. Wow. That's a big change at the age of 9. Big change.
I mean, when I was 9, like I was pretty sheltered. I mean, I grew up in a town and that had a population of like 500 people, maybe, to go to New York City where there's like millions of people. And my parents had told me the story that I had never really seen like homeless people before. And we were moving into our apartment, and I told my dad one day, I was like, "Dad, I met this really nice man on the street, and I told him he should come over to dinner one day." And my dad was just like mortified because I was just like this innocent country boy. I had no idea what was going on.
Oh my gosh. So you were really kind of shy, but you had funny stuff going on at home. And who in your life or what in your life pointed you towards comedy? And when did that happen?
So all throughout high school, I was doing plays. Even in high school, I went to college in Rochester, New York for for computers, basically RIT, Rochester Institute of Technology. And while I was there, like around that time, comics were touring. Like the most popular ones. I went to college from 2003 to 2007. So the most popular comics during the time, which I saw in school, were Dane Cook, Pablo Francisco, and Carlos Mencia. And a lot of people in my dorm were always watching stand up. And I like watched like copious amounts of stand up during that time. And then after graduating, I was working in tech for a while. And I think this was like December 2015. I kind of said to my family, like, hey, I really am thinking of doing stand up just to give it a shot because like I've done theater before. I've done like I went to a summer camp where they had like it was like a performing and visual arts camp in New Milford, Connecticut called Bucks Rock. It's a really, really amazing place. And they had a clown shop there. And the clown shop actually had it, like it was mostly improv. And I did a lot of improv then. And I really liked it. But I wanted to give stand up a try because I felt like stand up's really hard. But in improv, you have a team to fall back on if something doesn't go well. You can rely on other people. But with stand up, it's just you. And that's one thing I like about stand up is that you can create something out of nothing. You just create these jokes and if they resonate with people, it's great. So I was talking to my family about how I wanted to do stand-up, and I had done checked out a couple open mics and tried them a little bit with some ideas that I had in my head. And my aunt was like, Ethan, I have a friend of mine. My aunt's a professional singer. My aunt used to do like cabaret and stuff, and she has a lot of crossover. She actually, I think, got discovered at Dangerfield. She said that Rodney used to come down in like a robe, basically, because he lived above the club. And she actually saw me perform at Dangerfield's later after I started doing stand-up, and was like, this place looks the same as I remember it. But she told me, look up Rick Chrome on Google. So I looked up comedy classes New York, and he was like the first hit that I found. Like the first search result was Rick Chrome's Comedy Cellar classes. So I told him I ended up applying for it or signing up for it just because my aunt had already recommended him. And when I looked up comedy classes in New York, he was the first result on Google. So I figured it was probably a good class. So I did it, and I'd actually told my best friend from college that I was interested in doing stand-up. And my friend was like, and I told him about the class. My friend was like, I don't want to impose on your thing, but it'd be really cool if we could do this together, and we could like bounce joke ideas off each other. So he ended up doing the class with me, and we both did the class, had our student showcase. We both did a second class too, like the returning students class with him, with Rick. And it was great. Like, I felt like I had the performance part kind of down from doing theater all those years, but in terms of like joke writing, that's what I really got out of it, like getting my stuff down. And I did learn some performance techniques as well, about center of like looking at the out to the lights, and like really being able to, just when I first started doing it, I was kind of looking down a lot. Like, so I definitely learned from that as well.
I love that. I love Rick Crum. He came on and let me interview him. I adore him.
Yeah, Rick is great, and sometimes I've seen him. I'm just doing a show somewhere like Dangerfields, and I'll like, even though he's not like really like my teacher anymore, sometimes I'll just tell him a joke idea that I have, and he'll like tell me what he thinks about it.
How sweet is that, to have his help? He's been around the business for a long time. People really do very well once they go through his classes. They're off and running.
Yeah, and it's not like he does a lot of stuff for you. It's like you come in, he wants you to come in with material written already. And his whole philosophy is peeling back like the onion of possibility with any joke. So it's like, you have, how much can you mine from this one's perspective? You might write a joke and, one part of it, like, you feel like you're done with it, but then you like think about, oh, there's another like tag I can add, another thing I can add to it. And it's like just peeling back those layers of things that you can add to it. Like, in practice, there was a joke that I wrote a few years ago about having eczema, which I do have. I have eczema. And after like doing the joke for like a year, like the more and more I did it, I kept thinking of other things. And now I think the joke's pretty much done, but it's like, it's been like a few years and I keep adding things to it.
Wow. So like when you first started with Rick Crum's class, it was just set up punch, and now there's a whole bunch to it.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I think some of my stuff sometimes could be a little bit long, but there's some stories even since the beginning. But like the more and more I've been doing it now, since I started, I took that class in April 2016. Well, the showcase was April 30th, 2016. And then I've pretty much been doing stand-up on my own ever since then. So I found that a lot of the jokes I wrote from the original class kind of had his voice behind them. But the more and more I've been like doing it on my own, now the jokes are more of like my own identity. But
I got it. Wow. And talk to me about all your comedy festivals you've been in. What makes you so willing to go through the barrage of all the vakakta things that happen to people in comedy festivals? You're a brave soul.
I figured like, I think the first one I did was in 2017. So it'd been like a year into comedy. And a lot of these comedy festivals, you have to pay regardless if you get in or not. And I understand if it's something that's legitimate, like they need some money to run it. It can't be just run for free. And I make it decent money as a software engineer, so I'm not like that worried about the money. So I figured by submitting to whatever I can, I'm sure something's bound to stick. And I mean, there's been comedy festivals that I've applied to that I haven't gotten into, And sometimes, whenever I don't, I try to ask the booker or the person that's running the festival for feedback and what I can improve on. Because I've gotten tapes that I think are good, and they get me into some festivals, maybe not the higher level ones, but there's been some medium and low level festivals I've gotten into. And the reason I've been doing them is because it's a good opportunity to like do comedy outside of, you know, the local scene. Like the first time I did comedy outside of New York City before a festival was in New Jersey. I did this show. It was someone posted it about it. I think it was Joey Novik. He posted this this thing on Facebook, like asking for comments. I submitted to it, and it was like a fundraiser. And my material I've been mostly doing in New York. In New Jersey, this was a mostly like older crowd, but it was all people from New Jersey and Flemington, New Jersey. And I remember some jokes going okay, but a lot of the set not doing well. And it was also like I was driving. It was like an omen for how the set was not going to go well. So I was driving, and I don't like I really hate traffic circles. Like, and Flemington has a lot of traffic circles, and I ended up missing my turn. I ended up cutting off a cop and getting a ticket for careless driving before the show. So then after the show, like the set didn't go well, and I was like, that ticket was like an omen for how this night was going to go. But then I did some more. But then I started doing these other festivals, like the Conchi one was in Pennsylvania, and the Mommy Mary and Joseph Festival was in Fort Wayne, Indiana. And being able to like do sets outside of New York it's really helpful. I've done sets down here in Florida. Like it's very, very helpful because sometimes material that works in New York is not going to work outside of the city, and it's good experience to do comedy outside of your local scene. And a year later, after that horrendous set in New Jersey, Joey had posted about it again the following year, and I asked him if I could do a set, and this time I was like, okay, I know what material I'm going to do, and I'm going to like be able to kind of adapt it on the fly a bit. And it went much, much better, and it was a huge crowd, and I had a good set. So I was like, I've learned from this past bad experience.
Okay, so that brings up for me a question. Thank you for articulating that very well. With the strong background in improv and doing stand-up, how is it that you like articulate a little bit about a comedian that's different because of their strong improv versus somebody that you like? When I watch comedy, for instance, I can tell right away if they have a strong acting or improv background. So you're on the inside. Give us a little bit of insight about the advantages and disadvantages of coming into comedy with the background of improv.
I do think improv helps you a bit, like figuring things out on the fly. But when I first started comedy, I didn't even really rely on it that much, because I think when I first started, I was so nervous that I just kind of would blow through my set, like, and just try to get it like recited word for word. And the more and more I've been doing it, I kind of realized that you don't have to like necessarily tell every joke exactly how you wrote it. It's like, that's like a very rough skeleton, so to speak. And then you can kind of, there's like a little room for like some wiggle room where you don't have to necessarily, I mean, if you obviously want to do the punchlines as they're written because they're funny that way, but some of the setup and stuff, you don't have to, or if somebody like says something in the crowd, it could be a good time for interaction. So I think with crowd work, improv helps. And I think now that I've been doing it longer, sometimes I'll have a set list. Like I take a little piece of paper and I write down little bullet points of my set list. And I don't take I don't like look at it. I look at it before the show and I put it in my pocket, and I just have like this, it's like a safety blanket. I know it's there in my pocket, but I know the bullet points that I need to go through. And then once I do the show, I never take that piece of paper out. It's just like this something that helps with muscle memory. But there have been times when now that I've been doing it for longer, I'll go and see the crowd, unless I'm like not opening. But there's been times where I've seen like other comics go up and what the material they're doing, and how it's done, and I'll kind of look at the crowd. And there have been times where I've just changed my set that I had in my pocket on the fly, because I'm like, this opening joke this one will be better than what I had planned. So okay. I think that replanning helps.
That now you're talking, that's wonderful information about improv for comedy. Now you just touched on something different. You touched on being able to read the room and use your improv skills to switch up your set. So can you talk about different times that you've read the room and switched your jokes up and why? Because that's valuable information.
Yeah, there was a time where I had this show it was at Broadway Comedy Club, and I had my set all planned out, and I looked around the crowd when I got there, and I was like, this crowd looks like they're all from, well, they're all local, basically. They're from New York. They probably, I don't think they're gonna like. They probably don't live in Manhattan. They probably live in the outer boroughs. I have this joke that I started with Rick's class that I haven't done in a very long time, but and I hadn't done it in a long time. I think this was in 2018, maybe this show was, and I wrote this joke in 2 years, had 2 years ago, and I hadn't done it in a while. It was about how dollar stores in New York, like, you know, like when you go to a lot of stores on the, I don't know if you've ever seen those stores in New York where they're like New York City dollar stores, but they're actually 99 cents and up. So I wrote this whole bit about these stores, and I figured these people would like it. I just kind of could tell from the room. So I was like, that's gonna be my opening joke. I'm scratching the other joke. I'm gonna do that. And if I had done that same show 2 years before, I would have probably just stuck to my script and not deviated because I was just would have been too nervous. But prelude to that, I actually had done that joke on a very small bar show in Astoria. This promoter had told me like, yeah, you should come out early, bring your friends. We always pack out it was at a hookah bar in Astoria. We always pack it out every week. He was like really hyping it up. And I was excited to do the show. I hadn't done comedy in Astoria before. So I came out and there were like 3 people in the crowd, like 3 people. That's it. And this was like a year into comedy. And I was like, oh man, this is going to be like horrible because I had never done a show for such a small amount of people before. And they were just people smoking hookah. They were like not really there for the show. Like this, they were like, I like to call it like an ambush comedy show. Like you're doing a show at a bar and you have to fight with like a TV with sports on it, or like people that are not really expecting comedy.
Yeah.
But again, I looked at them and was like, I could probably do this dollar store joke. And I did that joke as my opening joke. And all 3 of them were like dying laughing. And I was like, okay, I could use this same joke. And so it was a real turning point for me actually doing this show for 3 people.
Man, if you can get 100% of the audience laughing and there's only 3 in the audience, that's brilliant stuff. That must have been one heck of a good joke, and you must have known how to really deliver it.
Yeah, I definitely changed my delivery up on it too, and like really was animated with like the way I explain how the sign outside is so big, so I'm really like yelling it out, and like, yeah, it was a really that joke ended up going over so well, and I always record all my sets either on audio or video. I have a little tripod if I want to video it, or I have the phone in my pocket using the sound recorder. And I try to record every set, every open mic, whatever I can, because it's just, then you listen back to it and hear what went well, what didn't go well. And I knew that joke had something, and I knew that it would, but it won't work outside of New York unless people know about New York. I don't think it's a joke I could do in like for that benefit show in New Jersey, for example. People wouldn't really, unless they've been to New York enough that they understand it.
Yeah, yeah. So when you travel and do comedy outside of New York, what would be like your opening joke? Would it be about being from New York, or how would you switch that up with your improv skills? Say you're usually doing something about New York and you don't think it would work in New Jersey or Florida. What would you do?
Sometimes it depends if I'm like in the tri-state area. There have been times I've done shows in Connecticut. Like I did a show at Comics Mohegan Sun, and I opened up with a bit about New York that I normally do in New York. And it still went well because people from Connecticut commute to New York enough. I figured it was okay, and it was. But when you're in somewhere like Florida, like my first opening joke that I did in Florida, it's actually kind of funny. My wife had her bachelorette party down in Florida, and she was like, "We have the car here. My friends are picking me up. You can go do whatever you want." And I went onto Facebook and found an Orlando comedy group and was like, "Hey, I'm from out of town. Are there any shows or mics going on tonight?" And I got on a couple open mics, and I got on a show on iDrive in Orlando.
Wow.
And it was really cool. And my opening joke at the mic, I did a mic before the show, was a joke about dating. Like I kind of like had my ring hidden, and I was talking about how dating's been really weird for me. It was just like a personal joke, basically, like a get to know me kind of opening joke.
Yes. Yeah, I love that when you peel off a layer of yourself for the audience to get who you are as your first joke.
And it's very self-deprecating, like, and this is actually based on truth. Like, I had gone on a date with this girl once, and she was like, "You have James Dean hair," which is like a nice compliment. But then she said, "with really sad eyes." So I worked that into like this self-deprecating kind of opener.
That's hilarious. That's a funny. You know, some of the funniest things we can say about ourselves are what other people will tell us they observe about us.
Yeah, no, yeah, absolutely.
Because, like Nikki Paris, he started saying that I'm aging backwards. So now I got a whole bit about all the stupid compliments you get when you're almost old.
I had done that. I had done a joke like that where it was funny. I had done this joke about professional wrestling, how I'm like a pro wrestling fan, and how I like going to wrestling shows because it's like an immediate confidence booster for me, because I look around the crowd and I'm like, man, I'm like the best looking guy here, and I'm a 6 out of 10 at best. And I had done that joke at a mic, and some lady came up to me after and was like, "You're not a 6, you're an 11." And I was like, "Oh, thank you." Yes.
That's a cool compliment. Wow. Yeah, then did you change your joke to say, I like going to wrestling because one lady told me I'm out of a scale of 1 to 10, I'm an 11, so I'm hooked now.
Yeah, I tweaked it a little bit. I tweaked it a little bit after that. But that's why I like joke writing, because the evolutions of jokes can keep going. They're never really fully done. I mean, they can be, but if you really want to like develop it, you can keep adding to it. And it's just like on experiences. That's why going out of the city is great, because like if I travel with my wife sometimes it's like it's another opportunity for me to like hit up a local comedy scene if I'm able to.
Yes, absolutely. So who are, besides Rick Crumb and clubs that have let you on their stages, have there been senior comics who are senior in the business that have encouraged your comedy persona or joke writing, or they've come along and said, you've got what it takes, keep going, that really made a difference for you?
I think, I mean, I'm talking about like maybe local to New York, but I like some like I remember when I would do shows for different promoters, and I would see like this one comic in New York, Ben Rosenfeld, was always taping the shows. And I remember him, he actually like he headlined the student showcase for Rick's class. And I kind of like befriended him and his wife Michelle, and they were always very encouraging, and they run their own comedy shows at like different venues in New York, and they would ask me sometimes to host the shows for them, and they were very encouraging to me.
Are they still in the comedy game?
Yeah, they still are, definitely. I
Good.
mean, they like they work it out really well, because they have a daughter now, and they work it out. It's like they work like one has a spot, one of them will watch the kid, and it's like they switch it around. Yeah, it's
That's good.
yeah, they're very dedicated.
Oh, that's awesome. So, in your comedy career, have you gotten to the point where you're able to reach back and help? You see a young comic on stage making mistakes you used to make. Do you step in and give advice, or are you the type to wait for them to ask you, or you don't want to give advice?
I'll give advice if they ask me. Like, I don't like to like be like, you should do this, but like there have been times where I've seen a comic not do well on stage at some shows, and then they'll ask me how look, there was this one comic in New York that we were doing a show at the Greenwich Village Comedy Club, and I was the host of the show, and this comic didn't do well. I mean, like I hosted and I opened up this, it was like a cold room, and I felt like I did a pretty good job getting them up. And then he went up and bombed really badly. And then the audience was like dead basically after that. And it was so bad that the promoter was like, before the next comic, do a couple jokes because we need the room back up again. That's how badly it went. It was like, he did a disservice to all the other comics, because so then I remember doing the jokes. Okay, I did a couple like small like one-liners, and then I introduced the next comic. I'm waiting in the back. This comic came up to me and was like, "How do you think I did?" And I was like trying to be nice. I was like, you try, like I was like, yeah, the audience seemed a little bit cold for you. You have a lot of setups, but you didn't have a lot of punchlines. Like, how long have you been doing it for? And then he just said to me, well, I thought I did really well, and walked away. And I was like, okay, don't take my advice then. All right.
Man, if you're gonna ask for advice, take it. It's free.
Yeah, I mean, he basically just like didn't acknowledge it. And actually, this comic, I tried to like help him out a little bit, because he would sometimes he would like call me on Facebook Messenger, and he kept telling me, I don't like going to open mics because the people don't laugh at open mics. And I was like, that's where you have to learn though. Like, you can't just, it's like if you want to get in shape at the gym and you don't go to the gym. Like,
Exactly.
like you have to put the work in, I think. And he was under the impression that like all the great comics completely wing it every time, which is like, that's the illusion of stand-up. But I'm like, how can you be doing stand-up and still believe the illusion of stand-up?
That'd be like going up and doing magic without ever learning magic basics.
Yeah, I actually, when I was in high school, did some magic.
Did you really?
Yeah, I had a friend in school that was like really, really into it, and he showed me some tricks, and I did it for like a year. I actually did a birthday party for my neighbor across the hall in my parents' apartment in New York. Like, I had like a Pyrean cake at the end.
Wow.
Cool.
Have you ever thought about bringing that in at this time into your comedy?
It's been so long, but I have some tricks I could probably still do, but maybe.
Yeah. Um, I'm the type, magic has always freaked me out. I can't stand to watch magic, but if I like the person, like I like you, so I would like your magic, but I hate magic. So I have a joke. I hate magic. I wish that they would just make it disappear, but they never do. So now, here comes the big question of the day. Since we've been on here a bit, half hour or so, where can people follow you? Where are your upcoming shows? And where on social media can people follow you? Because now they've gotten to know you off stage, and we want to continue my fans becoming your fans.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a website that I created for myself. It's my name. It's ethanfeldman.me. I
Got
wanted to
what?
buy .me. I wanted to buy ethanfeldman.com, but like it was like a park domain, and the person wanted all this money for it. So I was like, I'm just gonna do ethanfeldman.me.
Okay, awesome.
On social media, I pretty much use the same social media handle for everything. It's E, which is my, first initial of my name, MAX, and SAUN. And that's my handle everywhere. And it's kind of funny. It's kind of a little bit of a nerdy screen name. I've been using it as a screen name for a very long time. It's E for Ethan, M. My brother's name is Max, and my mom's maiden name is Saunders. And when we were first like in like early 90s, when I first got the internet, we had America Online. My dad didn't really use the computer much back then, and me, my mom, and my brother they only allowed you to have one screen name per account. So we created a screen name combining our names.
Love
But
that.
we wanted to do Emax Saunders, but it kept saying like the name is too long. It's too long so I had to keep deleting characters until it let me make that screen name. So Emax Son is what we came up with.
So it's EMAX Saun, SAUN.
Yep.
And that's how we find all of your social media under that.
Yeah, I mean, every single social media platform like Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, they're all on there using that.
Perfect. And so do you sell any merchandise where people can buy?
I don't sell any merchandise currently. I haven't gotten into merch yet.
No problem. And do you have any specials out there? Any tapings, any YouTube where they can watch your videos? Or where do you want them looking at videos?
Yeah, so if you look on my website, actually, ethanfeldman.me, I have a whole video section there. And there are some links off site to two projects that I was on. One was called the Turnpike Comedy Festival, and I have a set on the second episode. It's on Amazon Prime. So if you have an Amazon Prime account and you You can link it from my website or search for Turnpike Comedy Festival on Amazon Prime. The second episode, there's 2 episodes. The second episode, the opening comic on it is me. It's like about a 6-minute set.
Wonderful. Oh, how
And then
wonderful.
also, sorry.
No, go ahead.
And then also on my website, there's a link to this as well. There's a link to a Bravo TV web series called Amends, and it's called the link is to this episode. The show is where you're apologizing to somebody with an apology cake. So it's called Bake Amends instead of Make Amends. And my episode is called Sorry I Made You a Bad Jew, Mom. It's a story of a Passover, where if you know anything about Passover, you're not supposed to eat leavened bread during Passover. And I was supposed to get a cake for Passover, but I was running late. So I just bought a non-kosher cake. So I was apologizing to her for that.
Oh my gosh. So that's Bravo, and you got the Amazon. Both those links are on your website. And on your bio, you said you were on Bravo, Amazon, and Sirius. Do you have a link to the Sirius one too?
No, it only aired once. It aired like on September 8th, 2017. It was part of a show. It was on Channel 99 Raw Dog Comedy. It was for this show run by this comic in New York named Jay Nog, called Paid or Pain. It's a pretty interesting show concept where they tape every episode and air it on Sirius XM, and the crowd gets to decide if you get paid $20 for your set or if you get beaten by a dominatrix.
What happened to you?
So the crowd was like and they have judges. They had judges from like Shuli Agar was a judge, and Gino Visconti were judges from the show. From like Shuli's from Howard Stern, and Gino's a pretty well-known comic. So they were my judges for the show, and the judges liked my set. I have a video of my set somewhere, but it's like the actual Sirius XM recording was just recorded. I listened to it once, but it never it didn't get replayed. But what happened was the audience was very split, and they voted for both. So I got $20, but then I got beaten with like a paddle, basically.
Oh my gosh.
It was fun though, because that was actually a really amazing night of comedy, because I had 2 shows that night. One show at Broadway when I was doing the check spot, which is really rough because people are like trying to figure out their bills and stuff. And I'm like trying to do comedy. And the longer I've been doing comedy now, when people do the check spots, I don't come up with many really prepared material. I just make fun of them for like having to pay their bills. And I try to work some stuff in there, but it's like, you can't go in there. I went in there trying to do my set, and that's just not what's going to happen. Like you can't just like go through your material. You have to like kind of just let them like, yeah, it just doesn't go well usually, unless you like really know what you're doing. And now I do. So later that night, I did the same set for the Sirius XM show, and it went way better. So it's like the comedy yin and yang, having like bombing one earlier in the night and then crushing later in the night.
Oh, that's fabulous. So we got your links. We know where to follow you and where to watch your videos. And what do you have upcoming where people, if they're in the New York, well, you're in Florida right now, right?
Yeah, I'm doing a show on the 28th though. I'm doing a show on the 28th for a comic in New York, Rebecca Kaplan. It's called Glass House Comedy.
And so is that live or on Zoom?
It'll be on Zoom.
Okay.
It's called Glass House Comedy. I can give you a link to their to the Eventbrite page. It's a bit.ly link, so it's like a shorter URL.
Okay. If you could send that to me, I'll post it.
Yeah, I'm doing that show. I think it's 7:30 on the Tuesday, the 28th.
Okay.
I sent it to you.
Thank you so much. I'll put that up on the post. And what like before I let you go, I got one final question. You're
Sure.
young, you're not 70 years old like me, even though we have twins, our own twins. We're quite different in age. So I imagine you're not thinking about dying anytime soon, like people my age, but in your life, before you kick the bucket, and what is it you want to accomplish? What's your goal in life?
I think my goal right now, besides doing comedy, is just to be a good husband and father and provide my daughter with a good life, really.
How
I
old
mean,
is how old is your daughter, Ethan?
she's 2 in a few months. She was born May 15th, 2019.
Wow, awesome. So, and how long have you been married?
Uh, 4 years. It'll be 4 years at the end of the year.
You made it through the pandemic, being married and having a child. Holy Toledo! You have jokes about that?
Yeah, I do. One thing I noticed, which I think is hilarious, and it's all from my family, basically. But when you have a kid, it's like, do your relatives not realize how creepy they sound when they talk to you about that kid? Because like my aunt was coming to visit, and my aunt texted me in all caps, like, "Can't wait to get my hands on her." And I was like, "That's just creepy. You sound like the Wicked Witch of the West right now." Like, and I understand, they're excited to see the baby and stuff, but like the way that I just wish they would like text me normally. Like, can't wait to see you, can't wait to see the baby. But instead I get texts all the time that are like, "Oh, the baby's so delicious, can't wait to eat her up." Like they're talking about eating my kid. Like, it's weird.
People do that. Oh my
It's
God.
yeah, it's true. Like once you have a kid, your relatives all become like creepy, basically.
And we do have, I told you that would be my last question a minute ago, but I got one more.
Yeah, sure.
I kind of want to end on this because it's very close to my heart. You have a twin brother. I have a twin brother. Speak to people about what, you don't have to do it in comedy like way, but you can. Tell people what that's like, being a twin, growing up a twin, being different than your twin. People love to hear that stuff. So what's that been like for you?
I mean, we are identical, so I think people see us and like, "Oh, you guys are definitely brothers, or at least twins." We're not like we don't look like super much like we did when we were little kids, but I think being a twin, it's hard to explain because it's actually really hard to explain because I don't know anything else, because I have no other siblings besides him. So to me, that's all I really have known. But I feel like we have a really close connection. I mean, when we were kids, we used to beat the crap out of each other, but I think that's every sibling. Sometimes we still do a little bit. We still joke around and stuff. I feel like it's just like a bond, and we know each other. I feel like we do. Like whenever my brother, I know when when he's not feeling well, even just by like looking at his face. Like I just like we have like a definitely like a deeper connection. But I can't really say that for sure because I don't know. I don't have a connection with another sibling that's a year or two older than me or younger than me. But
Yes.
it's a very deep connection.
So do you have that thing that twins are supposed to have where you get a feeling and something's happened to each other?
Yeah, it's kind of, well, not like a feeling, but sometimes like I'll think to myself, "Oh, I haven't spoken to my parents. Let me see how they're doing." And then they'll be like, "Max just called us." It's like that happens like all the time.
Wow. I don't have that with my twin brother at all. I have that with my sister. I'll get my hair cut. I'll call her up and she'll say, "I just got my hair cut." And I'm like, "You're not my twin." This is
Yeah,
supposed to
that that reminds me, my dad has a really big beard, and my brother and me both can grow facial hair. I shaved like not that long ago, actually, maybe Sunday, and it's already growing back.
wow.
And sometimes I'll have shaved, and my brother's also shaved, and we didn't communicate with each other that we were gonna both shave, but it happened.
My gosh. What's the silliest thing that's ever happened to the two of you when you've been together, or the silliest thing anyone said?
One thing we used to do that was pretty silly was we definitely got in trouble for doing this, but we were really into wrestling when we were growing up, and we made tables and stuff like out of like styrofoam, and we tried to make like a pay-per-view. Like we called our company FCW, Feldman Championship Wrestling, and we had a pay-per-view. We called it Get Out of My House, like get out of my house. And we did like moves on each other, and I think we both actually hurt each other and like damaged something in the one of the walls. Oh, and my parents got kind of mad about that. And one of the things that we were like my mom had this art grant, and she went to Japan, and my family went to Japan for like a month when I was like 4 years old.
Wow.
And in Japan, the the craziest thing is in Japan, a lot of the walls of older houses are made out of paper, like rice paper. and we fell through. We broke one of the walls.
That's like the American equivalent of jumping on a bed and breaking the bed.
Yeah, but it's easy. It's just like a rice paper wall. We definitely put a foot through it or something.
Wow. My brother went through a long phase, a way too long phase of being a pyromaniac and starting fires. And I was submissive, all us women were. And so every time he went to start a fire, I was there. I might as well have started the fires with him. It didn't matter. Yeah. He burnt down a forest, the backyard. I'm surprised our house didn't go up in smoke.
Yeah.
So this has been so great to get to know you. And so I look forward to seeing you more and more on the Gladys Simon shows on Wednesday on Zoom. And thank you so much for stopping by. And I just can't thank you. I just really want to underscore, thank you for letting me get to know you and letting my fans get to know you and love you. And I know they will. So
Yeah, no, thank you for having me.
and I'll post all of your social media and kind of things that you told me, your upcoming show, and the link you're sending me. And if I have any typical old lady typos, just let me know.
Okay.
Thank you, Ethan Feldman. You guys, give it up for Ethan Feldman. Wasn't he great? Now go follow him. Thank you. Bye, Ethan.
Bye. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.